Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a coin that is absolutely everywhere. You probably have one in your pocket right now, or at the very least, in a jar on your dresser. We're talking about the 1976 Lincoln Memorial Penny. It's the bicentennial year. Fireworks, patriotism, and a whole lot of pennies. But here's the question we're going to answer today. Is this seemingly ordinary penny from 1976 just a common piece of pocket change, or could the one you be a hidden treasure hiding in plain sight? Stick around, because we're not just going to talk about the value. We're going on a deep dive into its history, the different varieties you must look for, and we'll break down the circulated value in a way that's easy to understand. Let's get started. First, let's set the scene. 1976 was a huge year for the United States. It was the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The whole country was in a celebratory mood. The U.S. Mint went all out, releasing special bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and even dollar coins with revolutionary designs. But the humble penny? It stayed the same. Well, mostly. The Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse, which was introduced in 1959, was still going strong. This design by Frank Gasparo shows the memorial built to honor our 16th president. And if you look very closely inside the memorial, you can see a tiny statue of Abraham Lincoln sitting there. It's an incredible little detail. The obverse, of course, features the iconic Victor David Brenner portrait of Lincoln that we've had since 1909. So, while the penny didn't get a special design for the bicentennial, it was still part of the massive coin production that year. And that leads us to a key point. They made a lot of these. Just how many are we talking about? Let's look at the numbers 1976, almost incomprehensible number. To put it in perspective, if you stack 9 billion pennies, the stack would be over 8,500 miles high. You could stack them to the moon and back about. Well, you'd have a lot of pennies left over. This massive mintage is the primary reason why the vast majority of 1976 pennies you find are worth exactly 1 cent in circulated condition. They are common, and they always will be. But, and this is a big but, there are exceptions. All right, let's get to the heart of the matter. What is the circulated value of a 1976 penny? Let's break it down by mint mark. This one, with no mint mark, is from the Philadelphia Mint. In typical circulated condition, that means it's been in pockets and tills. It has where it's not shiny. This coin is worth face value. 1 cent now. I can hear you thinking, but I saw one online for $50. Hold that thought. The value starts to climb when we talk about condition. Let's imagine a 1976 penny that was put into a bank bag and saved, never entering circulation. It's still in brilliant red, mint state condition. So, even a perfectly preserved, uncirculated 1976 or 1976 D penny is typically only worth a few dollars, with the premium examples and top-tier grades reaching maybe $10. For a coin you find in circulation, expecting anything more than 1 cent is setting yourself up for disappointment. However, we need to talk about the errors and varieties. This is where the real money is. This is the fun part. While most 1976 pennies are common, the mint wasn't perfect. Mistakes happened, and some of these mistakes are highly valuable. Here's what you need to be looking for. This is the big one. A double die occurs when the die used to strike the coins is itself misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect on every coin struck by that die. For the 1976, there are a few known double die varieties, most notably from the Philadelphia Mint. Look closely at the date 1976 and the MO. This is a true collectible double die, circulated 1976 double die penny. Even in worn condition, can be worth $1.50 to $1.50 or more, depending on the severity of the doubling and its condition. The Denver Mint also had its own double die variety, though it's often less dramatic than the Philadelphia ones. Again, check the date and motto. A circulated 1976 DDDO can be worth $1.20 to $1.75. This is an error you can't miss. The planchet, the blank metal disc, wasn't seated properly in the press, resulting in a coin that is partially blank. The value depends on how far off-center it is. A 5% off-center might be worth $5, but a 50% off-center strike in circulation could be worth $20 to $50. A broad strike happens when the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing the metal to flow outward. The coin will be larger in diameter than a normal penny and might be slightly misshapen. A circulated broad strike can fetch $5 to $20. So, how do you hunt for these treasures? It's simple. Get a handful of 1976 pennies and follow these steps. Under a good light, use a magnifying glass or the macro lens on your phone to carefully examine the numbers in 1976 and the letters in God We Trust. Look for that distinct shadow or doubling. Compare it to a normal coin if you have one dot glance at the edge of the coin. Is it blank on one side? Is the coin weirdly shaped or larger than the others? Those are your off-centers and broad strikes. Remember, 99.9% of the time, you'll just find normal 1-cent coins. But that 0.1% chance is what makes coin roll hunting so exciting. So, to finally answer our original question, what is the circulated value of a 1976 penny? For the standard War 1976 and 1976 D Lincoln cent, the value is firmly 1 cent. Its worth is not in its melt value or its rarity, but in its role as a piece of American history from a monumental year. But if you get lucky and find one with a major error or a prize variety like. The 1980 penny is part of the Lincoln Memorial Series, which ran from 1959 to 2008. It features the beloved Victor David Brenner design of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse or head side, which has been on the penny since 1909. On the reverse or tail side, we have the Lincoln Memorial designed by Frank Gasparo. If you look closely with a magnifying glass, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial. Now, here's a critical piece of information for 1980. This was a period of change for the mint. The composition of the penny had switched from 95% copper and 5% zinc to a 97.5% zinc core, with a 2.5% copper plating back in 1982 due to the rising cost of copper. But in 1980, they were still making both types. That's right. You can find 1980 pennies made from the older, brassier-looking 95% copper alloy and the newer, lighter zinc-coated steel. Well, not steel, but zinc. This leads us to our first key point, the 1980 small date versus large date varieties. And one of them is a legend. On the large date, the 8 is big and round, almost like a bloated snowman. The 0 is also wide. On the small date, the 8 is taller, thinner, and more elegant. The 0 is smaller and more perfectly circular. Why does this matter? Because in 1980, the mint at Denver, that's the D mint mark, accidentally created a very small number of the small date variety on the wrong planchet. The zinc planchet meant for the new composition, but they were still using the copper alloy. This created an extremely rare and sought-after coin known for its distinctive, sharp strike. We're talking a coin that, in uncirculated condition, can be worth over $5,000. Now, before you run to your penny jar, know this. The vast majority of 1980 D pennies are the large date variety. Finding a copper small date is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a stadium. But it's out there, and that's what makes coin roll hunting so exciting. Not all 1980 penny. Mint marked below the date, it's from Philly. The Denver Mint produced over 5.1 billion pennies in 1980. This is where you can potentially find that rare small date copper coin we talked about. And third, San Francisco S mint mark. Now, this is where things get interesting for collectors. The San Francisco Mint didn't produce pennies for general circulation in 1980. They only made proof coins. Proof coins are specially struck for collectors. They have a brilliant mirror-like background and frosted, matte-looking devices. They come in sets and were never meant to be spent. So if you find a 1980 S penny in your change, someone broke it out of its original packaging, and it has a premium value. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks, or brass zinc tacks. What is the circulated value of a typical 1980 penny? I know, anticlimactic. But hear me out. Its monetary value is 1 cent, but its historical value is priceless. It's a 44-year-old artifact from the dawn of a new decade. So, how do you become a penny millionaire? Well, you probably won't, but the hunt is a ton of fun. Here's your game plan. Get a roll of pennies asterisk, go to your bank, and get a 50-cent roll of pennies. Sort out all the 1980 and 1980 D pennies. Identify the variety asterisk asterisk, use a magnifying glass or your phone's camera zoom. Look at that date. Is the 8 fat and round, large date, or tall and thin, small date? Remember, the valuable one is the small date on a copper planchet. You can tell it's copper by its weight and its color. It looks more bronze than the lighter, brighter zinc pennies. Check for errors asterisk asterisk, look for double dies, off-center strikes, or clipped planchets. While no major widespread errors are known for 1980, strange things happen at the mint every day. The 1980 Lincoln cent is a perfect example of what makes coin collecting so compelling. On the surface, it's just a piece of change. But when you look closer, you find a story of a nation in transition, of minting mysteries, and Now, I know what you're thinking. It's a penny from the 80s. Big deal. But what if I told you that a specific, tiny error on a specific 1981 penny could turn that 1 cent into over $20,000? That's right. In this video, we're not just talking about a coin's face value. We're going on a treasure hunt. We'll break down the different types of 1981 pennies, show you exactly how to identify them, reveal which ones are the true sleepers, and uncover the incredible story of the Error King that makes one of them a modern numismatic legend. So, grab your coin jars and your magnifying glasses, because this is one you do not want to miss. To understand the 1981 penny, you have to understand that this year was a period of major transition for the U.S. Mint. Because of this, there aren't just one or even two, but 3 distinct types of 1981 pennies. And identifying which one you have is the first and most critical step. First, let's talk about the big penny switch. For decades, U.S. pennies were made primarily of copper. In fact, from 1909 to 1982, the penny was 95% copper and 5% zinc. But in the early 80s, the price of copper rose so high that the metal in a penny was almost worth more than 1 cent. The Mint had to make a change. So, in 1982, they introduced the copper-plated zinc penny we know today, a core of 99.2% zinc with a thin plating of copper. But 1981 was the last full year of the traditional heavy copper coin. And during this final year, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing pennies, but with key differences. This is the standard, no mint mark penny from the last year of the classic copper composition. It's heavy, it's a rich bronze color, and it weighs about 3.11 grams. Remember that weight? It's crucial. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Even though the official change was in 1982, the mints were preparing. And a small number of 1982 D pennies were accidentally struck on the old, heavy copper planchets meant for 19. This is the key. Don't get distracted by the date. Flip the coin over. You are looking only at the Lincoln Memorial side. Use a good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. Your phone's macro camera can also work wonders. Look at the words 1 cent and e pluribus unum on a normal coin. The letters are clean. On the DDR, you'll see that ghosting, that secondary image, slightly offset to the south and west. It should be obvious and match known examples. Don't confuse it with machine doubling, which looks flat and shelf-like. True die doubling is rounded and has the same depth as the original letters. A true 1981 PDDR will weigh 3.11 grams. If it weighs 2.5 grams, it's a post-1982 zinc penny and can't be the error. If you think you found one, do not clean it. Join a coin forum online and post clear, cropped, high-resolution photos of the reverse. The community is great at helping with identifications. For a coin of this potential value, you'll want to send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and encapsulation. The 1981 penny is a perfect example of why coin collecting is so exciting. It represents a moment in history, the end of an era for the copper coin. But more than that, it holds a secret that turned everyday pocket change into a potential 5-figure treasure. IT reminds us that you just never know. The next penny you get as change from the grocery store, The next coin you dump out of the piggy bank could be one of those few thousand error coins that slipped out over 40 years. AGSO. The next time you see a penny on the ground, pick it up. Check the date. You might not get rich from most 1981 pennies in circulation, but the hunt, the history, and the sheer possibility. That's what makes this hobby amazing. That's all for today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more coin hunting guides, treasure breakdowns, and numismatic deep dives. Now I want to.